Quad66. Alright, so here's these 1202.5 15,000 kV motors. And I've got this on the GemFan S props. I've tried it on a few props. And these are probably giving me the best kind of current performance of the props that are out there. The T65s I think are a little less efficient and they have a ton of vibration. The 2512s, I think those are pretty good, but in terms of smoothness. But with this particular motor and KV combination, we need really kind of like all the efficiency that we can get. Now, I'm intentionally not really flying this like super aggressive in terms of like the higher risk proximity stuff because I don't want to smash up these motors. Kind of paid a fair bit of money for them to get them custom wound, and I want to give them a fair chance before I beat them up. But I wanted to give you a sense of like, you know, the punch out on this and the flight time. I think it's close, but not quite where I would say I'm fully sold on it. I think it flies well. It's got the little nimbleness back that I like that's sort of missing from the 3-inch. But, here, I'll show you hover here. You know, 30 on hover. I'll show you a punch out. Pretty good, but not like blowing my doors off. And to give you a sense of comparison, next I'm going to plug in the 3-inch with Flywoo 1203s, 11,500 kV with a via 3-inch props. But I do think, you know, especially given that that quad has what I feel is like a pretty optimized sort of powertrain in terms of the motors and those props. I think we're kind of asking a lot in terms of setting that bar pretty high to use that setup as sort of the benchmark to hit. But I want to set that benchmark because, you know, realistically that's what we're competing against. And if we want something that offers something, brings something to the table that's worthwhile, you've got to benchmark it against that. I think the smaller builds with the 10002 motors and the GemFan 2015 props, I think those things bring something a little different to the table. In terms of like the novelty of how small and light they are. And they do surprisingly well in terms of performance terms, but for me they're a little lacking. So let's see, our battery 3 minutes. Getting close to done on this one. There's a little bit left here, but not much. So let's go ahead and stop that. See where that rebounds to. So a fair amount of battery sag. Now these batteries are getting older. This is the Tattoo 500. The R line, so 3.52, 3 minutes 13 seconds. Let's go ahead and switch out the quads. I'm going to do that 3-inch next. Alright, here we go with the 3-inch. And again, also 1S. And I'm flying on that same Tattoo battery. Now, I'm going to be a little bit like full transparency here. I did throw the cell with a slightly lower resistance on the 1202.5, but they're not far off. It's like 12 versus 15 on the resistance or something like that. It's not a huge difference, but I am giving sort of a little bit of the edge to the 1202.5s. Now this one, so jumping on the 3-inch, immediately the first thing I feel is, you know, in terms of low end, where's your hover? Your hover is like, you know, 27 versus I think it was like 33% or something like that. So the hover's a little higher, and the bottom end comes on a little bit stronger. This feels a little bit more floaty. And this is a really precise, really good flying quad. I mean, there's essentially like nothing wrong with this quad other than it's just got the size that it has, and you're going to have just a little bit less you know, just maybe nimbleness or something, or whatever it is. But there's just a different character to it. I think volume is really good on this 3-inch. You know, it's not loud. I can happy to fly this and, you know, not anger the neighbors, not annoy them. Let's give you the full punch out here for comparison. You know, that's got a little bit more kick to it on the punch out. I do have this quad now fully tuned. This is like black box tuned and all the rest of it, and so this thing is really dialed in terms of the handling, and I'm not fully comparing that at this point in time. Plus, these props are cleaner, they're smoother in terms of the balance, and what you'll see here is you're not going to see any temperature warning, core warning, and what I've been noticing is that when props are unbalanced and you're generating like a lot of noise, then the way to kind of cheat to see that without having to look in your black box is I've been finding that I can just look at the core temperature warnings, and when I see those come up, those do tell me that I'm dealing with more vibration, more noise getting into the system. That's been pretty reliable. I've noticed it across a couple different builds, a couple different quads. I don't know if that's going to be 100% reliable for you, but I've been noticing that, and so I do pay mind to that. So look where we are now. So we're at 2 minutes 45 seconds, and we still have quite a bit of battery here. You know, we're like starting to show some low stuff, but you still got a little bit going here. Just kind of trying to hammer this out. You know, it's sagging down, but I can probably get, I'm thinking at least another 30 seconds here of flight time. And I'm certainly not flying this any like gentler than the 1202.5. And we're definitely going to get more flight time. So what do we have? I think we've stopped with like 313 or something. We're already at 330 now. And I've still got battery. And you see it's still popping up to like 3.6 on the ascent there. So we're at 344. Still have battery. And this still feels pretty good. You know, you're starting to feel the sag. The punch out's not quite what it was, but it's still very flyable. Like this, I think we're going to get, so, yeah, we still got a little bit. I think I'm going to call that. I don't want to stress the cell too bad, but look at that. That's 411. Let's land that, see where it rebounds to. 3.55, 3.56. So it's like a minute difference. That's a pretty big difference in flight time. Let's go ahead and throw a couple more cells in. I'm going to go back to the 2.5 inch with the 1202.5s. Alright, so now we're back on the 1202.5, and I've got the Race Day Quads 520 battery. This is basically, it's a G&B battery. And so these are kind of that slightly longer cell. And so flipping back and forth, immediately what I feel is I have to get up higher in the throttle compared to the 3-inch, but it just feels a little bit more lively. I don't know if that can come through, but you know, it does, you know, feel a little smaller, feels a little bit more, a little zippier. Let's get a punch out here on a fairly fresh cell. Yeah, not bad. Not blowing my doors off. I think it's good enough. I think it's good enough punch out. I think most people will be happy enough because you've got enough power to go ahead and like throw it over stuff. But it's not giving me that little extra pop that I'm getting out of the 3-inch. So overall, with the available props, I think I find the 3-inch a little bit more satisfying to fly with kind of the, you know, the throw and stuff, just because it will throw better and it's a little faster. But this one, you know, if I was braver and kind of getting in here and doing the proximity stuff around the bushes, I might have a little bit more favor towards this quad just because it feels a little bit zippier and it feels like I want to, you know, jump in there and fly a little tighter stuff. Now look what the battery's doing here. So this cell is not as good as that tattoo cell, that R-line. I think weight-wise they're actually pretty similar, but you can see we're just 2 minutes in and we're getting into you know, some bouncing off the low voltage warning. Now if you let it kind of just sit for a second, you can see it's a fair amount of sag. That's recovering up to 3.6 hovering. So there's a good bit of flying left in this battery, but now I'm starting to feel it when I get into these punch outs. You're starting to feel that it's just not quite getting that pop that you want. Now if you're to fly more like horizontal, it's still going to feel pretty good, but on this sort of beat up cell, you know, in terms of usable flight time where I want to fly it in terms of having enough punch out and things like that, you know, 245, this is kind of the limit of it. Let's see if this recovers. I might have pushed this cell a little further than I should have. Let's see where it goes. Oh, it's going to recover. So fair amount of sag there. So this is bouncing up to 3.5 and 3.54. So this probably, you could have pushed it to 3 minutes, but trying to get that last 15 seconds, it's not going to be very fun flight. But the cell could have probably, it could have probably gotten another 10 seconds. Not much, but it's close. All right, let me change out, bounce back to the 3-inch. Okay, so now I've got back to 3-inch. I've got another 520 cell. This one happens to be a GNB. And this one, compared to that RDQ cell, this definitely has a higher resistance. This is like 28 versus I think the other one's 15 on the resistance. So that's going to make a little bit of a difference there. So I'm giving, you know, this, I'm just acknowledging on the battery, I'm giving the advantage to the 1202.5 build. Now, even with that advantage, what we're going to see here is that, well, let me see. I'm not 100% sure what we're going to see, but I think what we're going to see is that even on the slightly inferior cell, this platform is going to do just as good in terms of like flight time as the 1202.5 with a slightly better cell. Let's give it a little straight punch out here. Yeah, pretty good. Not, you know, granted, my like perception have changed. I've been flying these Captains, you know those really like high kV 2S builds. So I've been flying 11,500 kV motors with 2S and tri-blade props. And so my perception of a punch out now has been kind of skewed upwards. But so, you know, this 1S doesn't blow my doors off, but it gets the job done. Like, that's plenty high for popping up over, you know, trees and things like that. And ultimately, part of this experiment is like kind of reinforcing just actually how well this platform flies. So these are the Flywood 1203s. I've got the Emax Avia props. This is on a 2.5mm Warpig 120. I should probably get this frame up on CNCdrones so that it's a little easier for people to get it cut if they want to get it ordered directly from the cutter. So let's see where we're at. 2 minutes. We're starting to get into some low battery warnings. The punch still feels pretty good. You know, there's just, and it's not bad. This is like, you know, when I talk about kind of like the, oh great, so my goggles are going to go out on me. You got to deal with this goggle battery beep. So this quad, you know, this bigger quad, I'm so like, I feel like I'm just being too harsh on it in terms of like the maneuverability, because even for its size, it is a very, very responsive quad, and it flies incredibly well. And it's just easier with the bigger prop to get the punch out and the flight time. So look, we're here, we're starting to get into some low territory. Let's see what it hovers out to. And it's still hovering out okay. Punch out's definitely hurting. I mean, that's not the same punch out I had earlier in the cell. I think I'll call that one. That seems like it's probably going to be done. I bet you it's going to bounce up. Let's see. 3 points. 3.51. So 3.51, 320. All right, let's go back to the bench and talk a little bit more. Here's the 1202.5 test rig. So the motors, these are RCN power motors. They're the 1202.5, and I had them wind them to something approximating a 15,000 kV. They put 15,000 kV right on the label. I'm not sure if they're exactly there, but I think they're pretty close. They're probably going to be pretty close to that. I did build this up on the slightly smaller, lighter Warpig frame. So this is a 110, and it's 2.5 millimeter. And then I've got it built up on the Tune RC board. It's got Express LRS and a nameless RC VTX. It's got the LDRC 199C camera. And so there's, with this setup, there's a little bit of weight to take off of this potentially if you get really kind of into the details of the weight. But there's not a ton of weight. You're not going to drop, I don't think you're going to drop like 5 grams or something, really significant off this build. The benchmark that I was benchmarking it against is the 3-inch build. It's very similar in terms of just overall. So it's got the Warpig 120 frame, again in 2.5 millimeters. Again, it's got a Tune RC 1S board. Now these boards, I have found that they're a little bit different, where this board I get slightly longer flight times out of, and I've verified that by doing crossover with motors, and whatever it is, the variation, this this board gets an extra maybe 15, maybe 20 seconds. And I've got this built up with the Flywoo 1203s, 11,500 kV, and the Emax Avia props. And I like this as a benchmark because I think that these props are really optimized for this type of build with these 1203 motors. Do really well on 1S. And this quad flies extremely well with 2 different battery options. It works really well with the Tattoo R-Line 500s, and you can even go bigger if you want some more flight time, a little more punch with the G&B Red Label 720s. Either one does really well. With the R-Lines, it feels a little more floaty, but a little bit more kind of maneuverable, a little bit more nimble. The G&B is a little less floaty, a little better throw, a little more punch, so 2 good options. I can fly this on the 720s, but it starts to me, it kind of defeats the purpose. Like the whole purpose of kind of going to the smaller motors, lighter motors, to keep it nimble, keep it a little bit lighter. And when if you have to throw the bigger battery at it, then that kind of defeats, in my mind, the idea, the whole purpose of trying this. So now these props. So I've tried a couple different props. These are the Gemfan S props. I've tried the current version of the King Kongs. So these are the old, like, Who Cares, KK, Gemfan clone press-ons. But the current version they have, you can see that they've got a little sort of T-mount style. I did try these. It worked well. These are actually pretty well balanced, so it's kind of nice to fly these. It's smoother. But I think there's a little bit less thrust here, and this quad needs all the help it can get in terms of thrust, getting it to where I want it. Fluid on the T65s, I don't think it really helped any. It just brought in more vibration. Efficiency wasn't really, there wasn't no gain in efficiency or punch out, so the T65s I don't think really helped. I did like flying on, where are they? I did like flying it on the Gemfan 2512s. You probably give up some efficiency, but these kind of bring the low end of the throttle up just a little bit, so it feels, the quad, it just feels a little better at the low end. You pick up some grip, corners nicely and things like that, but then the trade-off is probably a little less efficiency and also a little bit more of, prop wash, a little more, the tri-blades are just a little bit more prop wash susceptible. So, unfortunately I can't say I'm blown away by this build, but I do think it's close enough to where, with an optimized prop and maybe considering some different options with the motors, I think we can get this to where it's going to fly really, really well. I do think you're always going to give up a little bit of punch and efficiency to the 3-inch, and that's just physics, that's a bigger prop. But you definitely are picking up some nimbleness and some of the stuff that I like, and so that's going to make some difference there. So this is kind of first go round. We'll talk about some more stuff. We'll talk about maybe we can get some 1103s rewound into a 15,000 kV. We'll try some different things, but first kind of go round, I think there's potential here. I think we definitely need an optimized 1S prop. We need a little help with that, but it's close enough that I think it's worth pursuing. All right, till next time, cheers.